Hey guys, and welcome back to the endocrine system, part 2. In the first video, what we discussed was simply what is the endocrine system? What does it do? How does it function? Why is it important? We went over a brief summary of that, and just to recap, the endocrine system is what's considered our slow control system of the body. It's doing all these functions, helping our body stay alive basically, and do what it needs to, just like our nervous system interacts in those ways. However, it's a lot slower. And we discussed the reason it's called that slow control system is because of how its messengers or who its messengers are, which are hormones. And so the endocrine system is your hormone system. That's what starts acting up around puberty and when you just get older and you have all those hormones that are going on. And so our hormone system is a lot more than that, though. It's actually working in our everyday lives to keep us just alive. And so today what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the two different methods of hormone action. In other words, how do these hormones interact with your body? What are they doing? And generally what they're going to be doing is they're going to just be sending a message to cells. That's it. Now remember, it's a target cell. Specific hormones can only interact with specific cells and likewise. And the reason for that has to do a lot with these hormone structures, how they're made. Yesterday we talked about how you can either have hormones that are like steroids, which would be like your lipid-based steroids, or you're going to have things like proteins that are going to be a little bit bigger. And both those different types of hormones are going to come into play with how they interact with the body. And so there are two basic ways that our hormones are going to interact with our body or our cells. And the first way is gene activation, direct gene activation, and the second is what's known as the second messenger system. Now, as we go through these two systems today, or these two methods of action, it's going to become more clear why they're named the way they are. Once we get a basic understanding of it, you're going to be able to understand, oh yeah, it's called direct gene activation because it directly activates the gene, or it's called second messenger because it needs a second step. And so before we even start talking about this, we probably need to take a little step back to biology. And what I mean by that is the process of protein synthesis. Some of you may remember this process where we take our DNA and we're going to transcribe our DNA into this little thing, which is our RNA. And then that RNA is going to get fixed to where it's what it needs to. That's what these introns are. They're going to be taken out, and we're going to be making a brand new strand of RNA. But once that RNA is ready, it's going to leave the nucleus, come out into the cytoplasm, where translation is going to happen. And in translation, again, we have all this process going on. You don't need to remember these processes step by step, but just helping you remember, kind of refreshing your memory what's going on here. We have this mRNA that comes out, and it's read by our ribosomes. And then the ribosomes start to make these polypeptide chains, aka proteins. And so what we need to remember is that, yes, DNA is what makes our proteins. It's what makes you. But in order for that to happen, it has to be coded into RNA first, which is transcription. Then that RNA is read through translation and turned into proteins. Another thing you can kind of think about when we're moving forward talking about direct gene activation and second messenger system is Rube Goldberg machine. And some of you guys might have seen these before and not known what they're called. They're called a Rube Goldberg machine simply for the person who kind of invented them, or this style of making these machines that have all these complex processes just to do one simple task. And I think this illustration kind of sums up what's going on with this these hormonal actions. In a lot of cases, that sets off chain reactions where it starts other things. So let's go ahead and we're going to go and look at those chain reactions and what's going on inside of your bodies right now. So the first one we're going to talk about is direct gene activation. And just like the name implies, it's directly going to activate the gene. In other words, like we have a hormone, and let's say that hormone is going to tell you to produce insulin. All right. Uh, this is let's not go with insulin. Let's just say that you have a hormone that's going to tell your body to make something. All right, direct gene activation, that hormone is going to go directly into the cell and tell your DNA what protein it needs to make. So before it can even do any of that, the first thing it has to do, though, is diffuse through the plasma membrane. All right, going back to basic biology again, think about what the plasma membrane is. It was that phospholipid bilayer that surrounds our cell and protects it. Phospholipid. All right, remember it's a lipid, it's a type of fat. And so other lipid soluble things can go right through this very easily. Steroids are made out of things like cholesterol, and so they are going to be lipid soluble, which means they can just go through that plasma membrane. Even if they're a little bit bigger, they can diffuse right through. If you guys remember back from biology when we did that experiment with the egg, where we put it in the syrup and then we put the other egg in just plain water and saw how they shrunk or swelled, that's what's going on here. It's just simple diffusion through that plasma membrane. All right, so once our hormone gets through the plasma membrane, then it's going to enter into the nucleus. Once it's inside the nucleus, what do you think it's going to find? Well, before it can find the DNA, because that's what's stored in the nucleus, there's a specific protein, a special type of hormone receptor that's located within this nucleus. And once this hormone attaches to that specific protein or the hormone receptor, it's going to trigger that hormone receptor to then go find a specific spot on the DNA. In other words, it's going to tell that hormone receptor to go find wherever the gene it wants to make starts. And once it's there, it's going to kind of like wave down that RNA polymerase, that other little enzyme that's going to come along and make the mRNA that we need. And that's how it directly activates. All right, I know it's kind of confusing, so we're going to go through it step by step with this nice little diagram. This just shows you the whole basics of it all at once, but let's go through one at a time. So first thing that happens, we have our steroid hormone. All right, it's a steroid, so it's lipid soluble, which means it can enter through this phospholipid bilayer. Even though it's pretty big, it's just going to go right through there without a problem. Once it does that, and it's in the cytoplasm, it's going to have to move to the nucleus. Once in the nucleus, it's going to find this receptor protein, and it's going to bind to it. We didn't get to really discuss much about enzymes and how they can kind of have this lock and key, or we did discuss that. Maybe some of you might remember it from biology, but nonetheless, again, hormones are very specific. They're like a lock and key, and this is showing you that because these receptor proteins will only receive specific hormones. So once this specific receptor receives the specific hormone, it's going to bind to it, and it's even sometimes going to change the shape or the structure of this protein, and then that protein is going to be able to go find a very specific site on the DNA. And so once that complex is there, it's going to find its site on the DNA, and now it's just kind of like a little person jumping up in the air with these flags, jumping up and down, saying like, start here, start the replication process here, the transcription. And so it's going to do its RNA transcription, and once we have our mRNA, it's going to leave our our nucleus and go out into the cytoplasm, because that's where it's going to find our ribosomes. And so once these ribosomes start to read the mRNA, it's going to start attaching these amino acids, making our new protein, and thus the hormone was able to do its job. That's the first one. That's direct gene. It's called direct gene because this hormone goes in and it directly activates the gene. Now it's able to do this again because it's lipid soluble. This is steroid hormones and your thyroid hormones, but mainly steroid hormones only that does this. All your other hormones, again, besides steroid or thyroid hormones, are going to rely on the second messenger system. So sometimes it's often referred to as the nonsteroid hormone action. And the reason for this is because this is dealing with your hormones that are going to be large proteins. They can't diffuse through the cell because they're not that lipid soluble structure. And so they're going to need a lock and key similar to what we saw here, but they're going to need it on the outside of the cell. And so once that hormone is able to find that receptor, it's going to bind to that receptor, and then it's actually going to start off a chain reaction of processes. Remember that Rube Goldberg machine I showed you guys? It's kind of like that at the microscopic cell or level on the top of your cells. You could think of it like that. And so as this hormone binds to the receptor, it starts off this process, and eventually some energy is needed for this to go on. Remember, we store our energy as ATP. Alright, and when that energy is transferred and the ATP is used, we actually make a molecule known as cyclic adenosine monophosphate, or CAMP or CAMP for short. And this CAMP is now going to go do the job of whatever the hormone wanted to do inside the cell. And so that's why it's called the second messenger. So you can think of it kind of like he's kind of like the mailman. You know, he gets the message and then he goes and delivers it, or the delivery person, whatever you want to think of it. But the other important thing about this to remember, the hormone, it can't go into the cell. And that should be pretty obvious after everything that I've already said about how it can't go past because there are these large proteins that can't get past that phospholipid bilayer, and that's the main reason why. But nonetheless, it binds at the surface of the cell. That whole chain process goes on, and it produces this CAMP on the inside of the cell. And then that CAMP is going to go around and do whatever the job is that it needs to. And so, again, just like we looked at direct gene activation, we're going to do the same here. So this is our basic process, a little bit different. We're not necessarily dealing with any genes or DNA or the nucleus. It's just a face value, a surface level thing that's going on. So, first thing that happens, our hormone is going to find the receptor. Again, notice that this little triangle here represents our hormone. There's only one place it can go to. And again, that goes into play with our hormones can only affect their target cells or their target organs. And so even though this might be floating around in your bloodstream going to every single organ in your body, if your organ or a certain cell in your body doesn't have this receptor, this hormone is not going to affect it. And that's really important when you are dealing with a messenger like this that is traveling everywhere. Because when you think about it, your neurons, your brain tells what neuron to fire where. It's very specific and precise. This is not very precise because, again, your hormones are just flowing through your blood, so it could be going anywhere. It could be going to a liver cell, it could be going to a stomach cell, it could be going to a kidney cell, you name it. It could be going to a blood vessel cell. And so it needs to be specific. With that being said, once this little protein binds to, or once this hormone protein binds to the other protein, it's going to start off a chain reaction that's actually going to go into this little molecule here. And inside of this molecule, it's another enzyme that's going to start to catalyze some processes and speed things up. And so as this enzyme is doing its stuff, all that chain reaction that I was talking about is going on in here. And then once that process is done, we're going to need some ATP to finish it. And so once that ATP comes along and it does its job, uh, remember adenosine triphosphate, we're going to lose those two phosphates and our molecule is going to become cyclical, so it's cyclical adenosine monophosphate. Now, you don't have to know that whole process of how the ATP turns into our CAMP here, but what's important to know is that everything that was happening in all these steps was just to make CAMP, because the CAMP is the second messenger that's going to be doing whatever the cell needs it to, which, like in this one, is glycogen breaking down. In other words, starting to break down some sugars and different things like that if we need to get rid of that. And so that's why it's called the second messenger system, simply because our protein or our hormone can't go directly into the cell, so it's going to need to rely on a man on the inside or something like that to do the job for it. So those are our two basic systems. If you can think of a better analogy to describe either direct gene activation or second messenger system, it's not a graded assignment, but if you want to, just come up with an analogy, send it to me via Remind or the homework drop. If you want to make like a little comic about it, that would be great, and I'd love to post it for everybody else to see. And so just some food for thought. If you're really bored right now and you're like, how can I do something that's going to be productive? Try and come up with some different analogies to help you better understand this and your classmates. All right? So these are how the hormones are acting upon our body, but what tells these hormones to act upon our body in the first place? Well, that's basically through this process of negative feedback. And negative feedback has to deal with the levels of certain things, whether it be in the blood or just temperature or whatnot. Your thermostat is a type of negative feedback system. And we're going to stop here for the day, and we're going to pick this up next week. But if you want to go ahead and get a kind of like a head start of where we're going next week and understanding this negative feedback a little bit more, a great resource to use would be our Amoeba Sisters. You could go ahead and I'll put the video link description for this video in the description so you guys can find it. But this video, I do want you to watch it, whether you watch it, today or next week. I want you to watch this because it gives you that basic understanding of what negative feedback and positive feedback is. Most of our hormones are going to rely on negative feedback, some of them on positive feedback. So you need to know what both of those are. And that's where we're going to start off next week. So if you guys have any questions, just like anytime, message me through Remind. And if you have any other questions, I'm here. So, to recap, we talked about the direct gene activation and second messenger system. As their names imply, direct gene activation, the hormone goes directly to the gene that it wants to activate. Once it activates that gene, the cell will produce the proteins that it needs to do the job that the hormone wanted it to. In second messenger system, the hormone goes to its target cell, but it can't go in because it's too big and it's not a solid lipid soluble. And so it relies on other messengers inside the cell to do the job that it needs to. So that's it for today, and I'll talk to you guys later.